What's up, everybody? Adam here in the garage again, and this time we are talking about the slip bobber version of the float and fly, and I want to show you everything about why this one is different and why you want to pick one or the other depending upon your fishing conditions and what you're doing that day. So take a look at my rig right here. So in my last video I talked a lot about the static bobber, which you just clip onto the line according to the depth you want to fish. But this time we're going to talk about the slip bobber and how this one will slide up and down the line according to the depth that you want to fish. There's a little more hardware and work involved in building this rig, so I'm going to go through the steps to show you exactly what I do to make it work and how it works. My rod and reel combination is similar to the other bobber rig, but this time I'm going to be using a different brand of reel. Again, I'm using a 10 series or 1500 series reel along with a 5'6" rod, again light action. This time the rod is going to have very large guides, and there's a specific reason for that. When the bobber stop goes through the guides, a bigger guide is going to let it go through easier than a smaller guide. So this is definitely not a technique you want to use with micro guides. You want the biggest guides you could get away with and still fish properly. Also, a rod that has less guides and more means there's less chances for resistance when the bobber stop is going through. To build the rig, just slide your line through the bobber stop wire harness and then pull a bobber stop onto the line. Just that easy. Next thing we're going to do is slide the bobber stop up a little bit, is put the bobber on. The next thing I do is clip on a split shot to the line somewhere below the bobber. The reason for this is so that way nothing gets stuck in the bobber, including the jig head. The last step is tying on your jig, and you're ready to go fishing. Let's talk about the advantages of the slip bobber over the static bobber. With the slip bobber, you can change the depth that you're fishing very quickly by just moving the bobber stop up the line. What I like to do is use my rod to measure how far away the bobber stop is from the jig. Now, if I put the bobber stop about 4 feet away from the jig, that means that the jig will fall down 4 feet into the water column. If I wanted to do this with the static bobber, I would have to move the entire bobber in order to make that work. With the slip bobber, you just move the bobber stop and you change your depth. Another advantage of the slip bobber is on windy days. When it is windy, the bobber will allow the jig to move up and down directly in front of the fish in a stationary position. Where with a static bobber, because of the way that it's attached to the line, it will move the jig from side to side or even forward or back depending upon the wave action. So in the early spring during the crappie spawn, I prefer to use the stationary bobber. And then if I'm fishing a deeper depth greater than 4 feet, or if it's a very windy day, I'll go with the slip bobber. There we go. And that's how you catch them with the slip bobber. So I hope you enjoyed part 2 of this float and fly tutorial. I hope you learned something. And if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below. You can follow me on Instagram at Adam Mihara Fishing. And please subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks a lot.